third grade. Today we worked on solving equations with 3 as a factor using distributive property. Distributive property means you distribute a number, meaning you break it down to smaller units. So we're going to work with some equations with the factor of 3 in it, and we're going to just focus on breaking down that 3. And we know we can break down 3 into, here's the number 3, we can break down 3 into 1 facts and 2 facts. Notice that if I would add 1 and 2 back together again, I would get 3. So I'm not changing the value of the factor 3 when I break it apart. I'm just taking 3 and I'm going to make a 1's fact with 7 here. And I'm going to make a 2's fact with 7 here. And then I'm going to solve and add and get 7 times 3. Let's try that out. So 7 stays the same. 7 is the first factor. 7 is the first factor. So I'm going to leave it the first factor in my new equations here. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to separate my new equations with parentheses. And we know when we were learning this with arrays that the parentheses separated the new, smaller equations from each other. And it reminds us that, we have to solve what's in the parentheses first before we can add to get our total amount. So 7 times 3. Like I said, that 7 is going to stay right where it belongs, the first factor in my new equations. So remember, I broke down 3 into 1 and 2. So I'm going to make my first equation here, 7 times 1. I'm going to cross that out so you know I used it. Then my other smaller fact is going to be 7 times 2. Now I'm going to solve these smaller facts to eventually get my total amount here. So 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. Now 7 plus 14 is 21. All of this is connected to this top problem right here. 7 times 3 is 21. Let's do some more of this for practice. So remember, when we see 3 as a factor, we can use our 2's and 1's facts to find a 3's fact. Let's look at that again. Let's look at this using the problem 6 times 3. You've got it. We are going to break that 3 down. We're going to distribute that 3. How? How can you distribute 3? Into 1 and 2. So I'm going to set up my new smaller equations here. Remember, using distributive property, you only can break down 1 fact. We are breaking down 3. That 6, nothing happens to that 6. That 6 is going to stay consistent, and it's going to remain the first factor in my new equations, my smaller ones. First factor here, here, and here. Now, I'm going to use my numbers. Remember, I broke down 3 into 1 and 2, so I'm going to use 1 here. I have 6 times 1. And then now I have 6 times 2 over here. I'm going to cross out that 2. Put it over here. Now I'm going to solve what's in my parentheses first. 6 times 1 is 6. Drop that plus sign. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 plus 12 is 18. Remember, all of this was done to get the final product of 6 times 3. Now this is just another strategy we can use if we ever find ourselves stuck. So, for example, if we have a problem 2 times 3, would we want to use the distributive property to solve this by breaking down 3? We could. We easily could. We could still break down 3, remember, into 1 and 2, and have 2 times 1 plus 2 times 2. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 2 times 2 is 4, and that equals 6. Now, would this be practical? Probably not, because we know our 2's facts really well. So in this case, we would want to use our patterns of 2 to help us with this problem. We know whenever we see 2 as a factor, we can take that other factor and double it, and that will give us the answer. But that was to show you that even with those real small equations, distributive property works. It works. We want to see distributive property as another tool that we can use, another strategy we can use if we ever feel like we're getting stuck. So we can look at problems like 3 times 3, and we can say to ourselves, oh man, I'm really having a hard time remembering 3 times 3. But I know 1 times 3 is, well, in this case, I know if I broke down this 3 into 1's and 2's facts, I know that 3 times 1 is, 3 times 1 is 3. And I know that 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 6 is 9. So 3 times 3 is 9. We'll do it one more time and then we'll take a look at our textbook assignment. Let's do 3 times 9. Now, if using 9 patterns is a better option for you, I would use that. But this is just to model using it with distributive property, breaking down that 3 into 2's and 1's facts. So I can break apart that 3 into 1's and 2's facts. So instead of seeing 3, I can say, oh, I know that 1 times 9, and I know 2 times 9. Loop, loop. 1 times 9 is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 9 plus 18 is 27. 3 times 9 is 27. You check your answers with your 9's fact patterns. You know that in 9's facts, all multiples of 9, if you add them together, all multiples of 9 up to 9. If you add those together, you should get 9. 2 plus 7 is 9. That's right. And also, my tens place should be 1 less than the other factor that's not 9. Let's a review on that. Strategy. So the reason why you're learning so many strategies in 3rd grade is so you can pick what works for you. So we're going to learn our force facts. We're going to use distributive property for our force facts tomorrow. But this is what you're going to do right now for your math assignment. On Schoology, you have math facts to practice. And also, I need you to complete 119 today. Now, in class, I had plans to go to page 120, and we ran out of time. But we will get to that hopefully tomorrow. We're going to try some of those word problems. Okay, so like I said, you are going to be completing page 119 in your Envision math book. And at the top, we're going to be practicing using distributive properties, solve our 3 facts. But here at the bottom, you can solve your 3 facts however is comfortable for you. And remember, skip counting is always an option. And I posted the 3 skip counting song also in Schoology to help you out with that. Now, we did most of these on my whiteboard. But if you need further help, I would recommend taking a look at another look, and it breaks it down for you again, step by step. Notice the patterns you see that are happening in this example problem. Use this example problem to solve 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 with you right now because we did those in class, and then at the bottom, you're going to be doing these independently. So it says use arrays or distributive property to find each product. Now, I'm just going to use the array here to find the product of 3 times 4. I see 3 groups of 4. So in my mind, I see that 4 plus 4 is 8, and plus 4 more is 12. Now that is the same, if you think about it, as using distributive property. In our minds, we are going to naturally we're going to naturally add 4 plus 4 together first. That's just what we're used to. Did you know that we're actually using the 2's fact? 3, 2 times 4 here. This shows 2 times 4. And at the bottom, when we added that last group of 4, we were solving this equation. Just 8 plus 4 is 12. See the connections here? All right, we're going to fill in these unknowns here. These blanks are the unknowns. So how I like to solve these is to pretend that these clues aren't even there and to just solve it. Well, I'm going to use those clues, but I need to think about this in a way as if they weren't there. So I have 3 times 5 here. Remember, we're going to break down that 3. And if I break down that 3, I can break it down into 2's facts and 1's facts. Now, notice how the 3 is the first factor here. So if I break that apart, my new numbers, 2 and 1, are going to be represented as my first factor in my new equations. So here is your clue. 1 has already been used. Remember when we break apart? Usually show 2 first. Always want to solve that bigger equation first. It makes it easier to add, right? Notice that the 1 is already used. So here is where my 2 would go. Now remember, One factor does not change, and that, in this case, is 5. Notice how 5 is the second factor here and the second factor here. Therefore, it's going to be the second factor here. Look at that. Now, I know I can solve. I have to solve what's in my parentheses first. 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5. That's the same as looking at this equation. So let me go ahead and draw this out with my stamps. If I was using an array, because that was an option too, I have 3 groups of 5, correct? So here's a 1 row of 5, 2, and 3. Now, if I was to solve this just looking at the array, what would you see first? What would you add first? You would add 2 groups of 5 here, which is 10, and then you would add on 5 more, correct? That's the same thing that's happening up here. This top array here shows 2 times 5. The bottom one shows 1 times 5. It's the same thing. 10 plus 5 is 15. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to erase this too, because we might make that same breakdown again. And let's go ahead and look at 4 times 3. 4 times 3. We know we're going to leave that 4 alone. That's our first factor here. Therefore, in my new equations, it's going to be my first factor. So that's one of my missing ones. Know that we break down 3 into 2 and 1, correct? 2 and 1. Okay, let's look and see which one has already been used. It's the 1, so 2 is missing here. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Let's do this one, 3 times 6. We're going to break apart that 3 into 2 and 1. You've got it. Notice 2 is here. We're going to put 1 here. What stays the same? The 6. 6 is the second factor here. It's also going to be the second factor here and here. 2 times 6 is 12. 1 times 6 is 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. 3 times 6 is 18. All right, it's time for your independent work. You have to do numbers 5 through 14 by yourself. Any way you choose, any strategy you choose. If making arrays is a strategy you choose, do that. Making equal groups is a strategy you choose, do that. Knowing other patterns is a strategy. 2, for instance, here, I would use that to solve for 3 times 2. 5, for instance, here, I would use 5 to solve for 5 times 3. We use my 5 patterns. I would use my 9 patterns even to solve for 9 times 3 here. And we know our zero property of multiplication rule. And we know our identity property rule. Don't forget those. Have fun with this. Multiplication is fun, and don't forget to practice more facts on Schoology, do your Math Fact Pro, and practice your skip counting. Take care.